Analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus towards what's happening in the United States of America. US President Donald Trump has held a roundtable meeting on the Antifa movement, where he's built a case for the National Guard deployment to Chicago and Portland. Now, the meeting was attended by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel. There were other senior administration officials present too. Now, Trump has stated that federal law enforcement will be very threatening as it goes after Antifa, which he recently designated as a terrorist organization. Listen in to what Trump has said.
The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade. At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. I see it all the time. And these are agitators, anarchists, and they're paid. And you'll find that out. You'll be finding it out very soon. You should see what we have on these people. These are bad people. These are people that want to destroy our country. We're not going to let it happen. They've used armed gangs to assault local police in cities nationwide, and they've attacked journalists reporting on their crimes. So the journalists that report on their crimes, don't worry, you're very safe. I hope that's not going to turn you around, but they have been very threatening to people, but we're going to be very threatening to them, far more threatening to them than they ever were with us, and that includes the people that fund them.
Meanwhile, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has also pointed out threats against law enforcement, citing these threats as reasons to deploy the National Guard in cities like Portland and Chicago. Listen in.
Last week, I issued a memo ordering our federal law enforcement agents, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and ATF to protect ICE officers from Antifa and other radical left-wing violence. Director Patel has been going non-stop. He and Deputy Attorney General Blanche were in Chicago yesterday, while Secretary Noem was in Portland. We are around this country fighting against this domestic terrorism.
She's also highlighted that decisions by Apple and Google to remove phone applications that track ICE officers has been welcomed by the administration. She added that she hopes they continue to remove such applications. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has accused the Portland mayor and Oregon governor of covering up terrorism and has blamed Antifa for political violence in Portland. Meanwhile, protesters have taken to the streets of Chicago to march against the deployment of National Guard troops to the city. Some 500 National Guard troops have been deployed near Chicago on Trump's orders, despite objections of the Chicago mayor and Illinois governor, who've decried the militarization of their city as unnecessary provocation. With us on the broadcast is Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar, Senior Strategic and Defense Expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. In the latest, Donald Trump has called for the arrest of the Chicago mayor as well as the Illinois governor. He's also, in fact, warned that he could invoke the Insurrection Act as well. Now, at the outset, the Trump administration maintains that they're deploying these troops in order to tackle crime in these cities. So in that case, is what we are seeing justified or an overreach?
Thank you very much, Pia, for inviting me for this discussion. A very important one because it brings to forth a very interesting debate. Federal versus the state powers. Federal, as you mentioned, the Insurrection Act 1807. This is a most legal document in which the federal government can enforce its forces onto the state government. When the states are unable or unwilling to suppress insurrection, domestic violence, or any unlawful combination, and when federal law or constitutional rights are being obstructed. Now, what I can see is this is a double-edged weapon, as far as the federal powers are concerned. Because if I take you back couple of months back, after Donald Trump returned to the presidency, United States has witnessed widespread protests, especially in urban areas such as California, Chicago, Portland, and Oregon now. And basically, these protests have been targeted as opposition to his policies on immigration, abortion, and policing. Local unrest is also happening in the United States related to inflation and automation related job losses. So, what is happening now is that President Trump's response, let us study his response to these protests. He has framed these protests as a threat to national security. So, when a president in a democratic country, and they seem to prophesize to the whole world, including India, that what democracy is all about, but they are themselves not following the tenets of democracy by the people, for the people, and of the people. When the people of the state don't want the federal forces to be there, because now they are the protest also in these states
Yes.
from the people to send back these federal forces, because they don't want any kind of interference in their own affairs of the state. And especially when the governors are competent enough, because the Attorney General Bondi has also made a statement that the state law enforcement agencies are competent enough to deal with these demonstrations, and the federal forces are not actually required. So I think this is an abuse, I would say, of the executory statutory powers the President of the United States has in terms of the Insurrection Act of 1807. And this Department of Homeland Security is the one, it's a federal protective service, and it gets into the act. And also the FBI is also involved into this thing. So this is becoming a state versus the federal. And one more important observation, Pia, I would like to actually give here is that Trump is only targeting the states where the governors are from the Democrats.
Yes.
He is not targeting the states where his own Republicans are there. So it is a clear cut case of a politicalization of a federal versus the state. And in times to come, this has very strong implications. We have to understand the implications, because you may invoke the act, you may invoke, firstly is this organization is not a terrorist organization. There is no official structure of this organization which we are talking about, which he's calling it as a terrorist organization. And it is basically a political organization. And therefore, it should not come under the Insurrection Act, because this is basically a demonstration based on democratic rights of the people. And in the short term, as I visualize, if these kind of deployments will be there will be legal issues now.
Yes.
Governors will go to the Supreme Court, to the federal actually courts on interference in their administration in the states, and in a very large manner, it becomes a kind of a precedence. You see, what happens is that once you start enforcing these things, it becomes a precedence for the future. And I think that is can be avoided.
I was just about to ask you what kind of precedent does it set, because, as you mentioned, there are Democratic senators who've come out and in fact slammed Trump for targeting Democratic ruled states such as Illinois, California as well. We've seen what J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom have had to say. But that's not all. In fact, some Republican senators such as Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, they say that Trump is using the military for policing. What are the implications then down the line? Several GOP senators have in fact expressed their fears that maybe one day a Democratic president might do this against Republican ruled states.
A very, very pertinent point, I would say, and a very, very relevant aspect, to this discussion, because what are we looking at? Do we want to delegitimize dissent? Do we want to expand our surveillance and prosecutional tools under counter-terrorism frameworks? Do we want to shift the narrative from economic or social grievances to security threats? These are the three major questions which I think President Trump needs to answer. And as you rightly said, the use of military has to be very, very limited in policing. And that is why military and police have been kept as two separate organizations. I will give you an example of India to understand, to make the viewers understand it even much better. We also have the center and the state relations. The law and order basically is a state subject. It is to be handled by the state and not by the center. The center can only intervene in case the state is unable to carry out, or there is an anti-national movement of the state government which the state government is trying to enforce in its own jurisdiction. And that has to be sufficiently evident. It just can't be that all of a sudden you decide that this is an anti-national movement. It has to have a definite evidence available to you. You must have proof available to you to enforce a governor's rule in a state. For example, I'll say in India, we have the president's rule being enforced by the president of India in a particular state, where the state government is unable to control the law and order situation or to deal with national security. So on the similar lines, the United States also functions. There is a power with the state government. The state government has a police force. It has got its own enforcement agencies. And when the state governors are telling you that we don't need the federal forces, why is Trump imposing upon the states these federal forces? So I think they will all go into the Supreme Court, because it is going to become a legal issue now. And protests have already started against deployment of these federal forces in the state. So it is a larger question which needs to address. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing under President Trump, he is slowly moving democracy to anarchy. He's trying to become a dictator. And I think that the people of America are not going to tolerate.
And you've touched upon something that I'd like to ask you. You've spoken about surveillance and technology. We've also seen Apple and Google removing phone applications such as ICE Block that track ICE officers who are detaining people on the streets. Now, we've often seen criticism from international media houses against India when India makes requests to X for blocking accounts that are inciting hatred and compromising the national security. So in this case, is it evident that the US is definitely not practicing what they preach?
I think, Pia, you've raised a very valid observation, because if you see the things, if you start comparing nations, it becomes evident that America is not practicing what it preaches, because we have seen it in Gaza also, the peace accord which has been launched by America. And it is basically a suicide pact for the Hamas. It's actually not a peace accord if you go into depth of that thing. So it is very, very clear that America's foreign policies, domestic policies, both indicate to you that America does not practice what it preaches. And it's become very evident when you say that Apple has been told to remove these apps. You know, why have they been told to remove these apps? What is the intention actually behind this entire thing? So once the intention is known and reasons are known, it becomes very, very clear that they don't want any kind of footprints to be available to hinder these kind of arrests being made on a willful basis, because now they will do a witch hunting. They will decide whom to arrest and whom not to arrest. The person who's vociferously leading this a movement against Trump administration, against his laws, he's going to be arrested, and nobody will come to know where is he gone and where has he been kept. So these footprints will be no longer available through the electronic surveillance. So these are very important human rights issues, because America is all the time saying these organizations which are also American based, like Amnesty International and all, they keep on highlighting in India also these humanitarian issues. I think they need to look inwards now and highlight in America also what kind of humanitarian issues are going on, and you are curbing the voice of dissent. You are curbing political dissent, and I think that's not a good form of democracy to follow.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World today. With that,